sudden. There's Tim Griffin now. Good morning, Congressman.
Good morning.
Good to have you with us. Thank you. I know you've been very busy in Washington fighting off the foes of evil and all of that.
Well, let me tell you, it's mostly been fighting off the technical problems with the satellite feed. So I wouldn't glamorize it. We just couldn't get the connection right on the TV on the Channel 4 KRK deal.
Okay. Well, let's talk a couple of big things to talk about. And let's start with Keystone.
Sure.
That's the Keystone pipeline. You know, You are upset with the president's decision to not allow Keystone to move forward, and under normal circumstances, one would say, well, that's just partisan. And then you find out that Democratic Senator Mark Pryor is upset about that as well, and it seems to be everyone is upset about this on both sides of the aisle. This is a pipeline that would have brought fuel from Canada down, I guess, to the Gulf, to the refineries that would have run right down the middle of the country.
Well, let me ask you this: even if that would have been partisan, does that make it any more right or wrong? I mean, I don't. My point is this: I don't. It doesn't matter to me on this one. Who else agrees or doesn't agree? This is the biggest no-brainer that I have seen since I have been in Congress.
Help me, Congressman, help me understand the opposition to this.
Okay,
and I was talking.
What's going on.
Because apparently it's environmental.
This is a lot of folks would say, well, why would the president do this? This seems so bad politically. We need jobs. He's just not letting jobs go forward. Here's what's going on. If you look at this from a national security standpoint, a job standpoint, a energy independent standpoint, this is an absolute no-brainer. Here's where the president is on it, and he's not going to say this, but this is the fact. The president has two key parts of his political base that he needs to get reelected: unions and environmentalists. And what he did about 3 or 4 months, I guess 3 months ago, maybe 4 months ago, he said, you know what? I am torn between the extreme environmentalists who oppose the pipeline. They don't want to further any fossil fuel use, despite the fact that we're going to be using oil and gas for a long time.
And that's what it is too. It's not about it's not about an oil spill.
No. Look, we have pipelines running all over this country, and they are well regulated and they are completely safe. They have them now with computers. They know where the flow is. They know where. I mean, it's incredible. But in any event, so you've got the extreme environmentalists on one side who say no pipeline, and then you have the labor unions, which are a big part of his support on the other side, saying, yes, we need the jobs. So what he did a few months ago is he said, well, you know what? I'm not going to make this decision until after the election. Yeah. Now, what that was is a punt. So we in the House passed a bill that said, look, you've got to make up your mind on this in 60 days.
Because you guys tied that to the debt limit.
We tied it to the payroll tax holiday extension. We tied it to the vote over that was right before Christmas.
In other words, you called him and you're going to make him show his cards.
We said, you got to make a decision in 60 days. So what they decided was, look, well, we got to make a decision. Why don't we deny it and then blame the Republicans? So what they did, they said, okay, we'll side with the environmentalist. And then we'll say it was the Republicans' fault because we didn't have enough time. So that's exactly what's going on. Now, what they won't tell you is this has been pending for 3 years.
Yeah,
there's plenty of time. And TransCanada announced yesterday that they're going to reapply. So there's plenty of time. There's been plenty of time. This is a political football, and if it was a matter of time, then why did the president say we're going to need till after the election? He should have just said, if he was sincere, hey, I don't know how long it's going to take, but as soon as we can get it dealt with, we'll deal with it. Could take a month, could take 6 months, I don't know. But that's not what he said. He said, we won't be able to do this until after the election. Well, this is all politics, and I am glad to see bipartisan support for this. But I'll just tell you, if I was the only one on an island, I'd like to think that I'd be saying this is the biggest no-brainer.
Right, but you'd have to agree that when there's bipartisan support, it does say to the electorate in general, right, left, Democrat, Republican, everybody agrees except one guy.
Yeah, well, there's a small percentage of people that want to kill this pipeline, and most of them do not live in Arkansas. And
the impact here, I guess, is that there's a company in Little Rock out at the port, Wellspun, that has been making pipe all this time for this thing.
They have. I talked to them yesterday. In fact, they flew up for a press conference right after the president said he was going to delay the decision until after the election a few months ago. But I talked to them yesterday, and they need this pipeline, obviously, because they've just made hundreds of miles of pipe. And what they're afraid of now, yes, that is purchased from them, but what they're afraid of now is that that's not going to be used for this pipeline. So it's going to be dumped on the market after they had 24-hour shifts making this for the last couple of years.
Pipe is going to be on sale.
Pipe is going to be cheap, and they're not going to have any business.
All right, hang on with us for just a moment, because I need to take a break and get a little bit of the news update from our friends over at Channel 7. And when we come back, I want to talk about SOPA, because that's a big deal as well.
Cool, sure.
All right, Congressman Tim Griffin from Washington there, 7:17 now on Fresh Talk. 7:21 now at Fresh Talk 93.3, talking with Congressman Tim Griffin, 2nd District Representative up in Washington. Congressman, I'm proud of you.
Thank you, ma'am.
I really am, because I know it is very easy, and it happens a lot when you sign on as a co-sponsor of a bill. There's a lot of folks who it's not hard to say, I've made a commitment to these folks. I have to keep to that commitment and dig their heels in. In this case, it sounds like it was one of those bills that sounded like it made sense on the front end. And last night you announced that you are withdrawing your support for SOPA and are going to take your name off the bill as well.
Yeah. How much time do we have? Do we have a few minutes
here?
Yes,
sir. Yeah, we're good for about 6 or 7 minutes.
Okay. First of all, I want to just make clear what the problem is to a lot of folks. SOPA was intended to deal with the theft of intellectual property, music, books, online movies, but not just those. Counterfeit drugs. Counterfeit drugs are a huge problem. Now, this, and I will tell you, there's a lot of misinformation on this. There are a lot of legitimate concerns, but there's a lot of misinformation. This bill deals with foreign rogue websites. So if there's a domestic website allowing that kind of illegal activity, we can already go under that under criminal law.
And let's be fair, it was designed to deal with foreign folks, but it was going to have such a big impact on people here in America that it's just horrible legislation.
Well, and that's some more of the misinformation, and we have done an awful job of communicating this collectively. But here's the deal. Most of the criticism is focused on the original bill, which had what's called DNS blocking in it and some different enforcement mechanisms. So a lot of the criticism that people have is of the bill that you'll find online. The problem is there's a second version changed by a manager's amendment that hasn't been formally passed out of committee yet, so it's not technically official, but it changes a lot of that. Then last week, the chairman took away the DNS blocking part, and that's not on the official. So if you go online and look at the bill, that's not actually the bill that the folks in the committee and elsewhere are considering. That's the original. So all sorts of confusion and legitimate concerns, particularly with the first version on the DNS blocking and what have you. But in any event, I concluded that, look, first of all, I'm not going to support anything, whether it's based on perfectly sound information or whether it's based on the confusion, whatever it's based on. I was not going to support something that my constituents were overwhelmingly opposed to. And I decided that, look, whether I agree with all the criticisms or not, and some of them I agreed with, and some of them I believe were based on false information. But in any event, I was not going to support something my constituents were uncomfortable with, overwhelmingly.
Congressman, let me ask you this. I mean, and I don't mean this as a joke. I've got a lot of friends who are lobbyists, and this is really a role that lobbyists serve, because when you're have to vote on a measure like this, hopefully you get to hear from both sides.
Sure you do.
And that's what the lobbyists do. In this case, because we do have a vested interest in protecting intellectual property rights, just like we want to protect the property rights of this radio program. The other side of that, though, that the original bill which you signed on to was very, very overreaching. Is this kind of a learning lesson for a congressman about signing on to bills?
Well, sure. I mean, you always want to make sure that you're good with the bill that you sign on to. Obviously, I will tell you this has a higher profile with me because this is the chairman's bill and on judiciary, and I'm on judiciary. And this is an issue that I feel very strongly on. The main thing that I was not the main thing that gives people concern that is now gone is the DNS blocking. But I will tell you, it is well known that a bill at its inception is going to change in committee. And so I was not under the illusion that the original bill was never going to change, that it wouldn't be amended in committee, and that it would go to the floor exactly as – I mean, that just doesn't happen. They get changed. You meet with stakeholders. You have a starting point, which is the original bill. So, yeah, I mean, we always need to look closely. I never expected this sort of outcry about it. And I'll be real frank with you. I also never expected the people who support it to do such a poor job of communicating why it's important. And so there is no way that this bill can be the vehicle for whatever we need to do. And I think the biggest problem with this bill is that the folks at Wikipedia and Google and a lot of the internet folks were not part of the conversation. And they should have been. Now, some would say, well, they weren't part of the conversation because they weren't willing to do anything on it. Well, maybe, maybe not. But it's clear that we're not going to be able to do anything in this area unless we get some consensus.
If you're opposed to the bill, I'm reminded, I can't remember if it was The Godfather or another old gangster movie, but when it comes to your enemies or a bill that is going to injure your business, like the Google folks would have said, you don't want him injured, you don't want him hurt, you want him dead.
Yeah.
Dead.
Well, that's right. That's right. Well, let me just say this. Google, just to be fair, Google just paid a $500 million settlement for enabling counterfeit drug sales. Because this is not just records and music. A big part of this, is counterfeit drugs. For example, you go on the web, you see a link to buy cheap drugs, you buy Lipitor for your cholesterol, it comes in the mail, it's shipped from Russia or wherever, and it's actually concrete or it's chalk or whatever, and you're taking it thinking you're helping your cholesterol. I take Lipitor. And you're not, because it's not really medicine.
Well,
that was a Google case that they just lost $500 million, $500 million.
They call me from India almost every night wanting to sell me something. It's making me crazy. I can't get them blocked.
Yeah, so again, most of this problem, to be fair, is Russia, China, a lot of the STAN countries, Pakistan and
Uzbekistan and
maybe to a lesser extent Afghanistan.
We got to run and get news in half a minute.
Yeah.
But
so in any event, we have a problem. This is not the way to solve it. And we got to do a better job of getting a consensus among different stakeholders, and B, communicating. And we need the internet folks assisting with whatever. The Googles of the world assisting with whatever we do.
We all do. We all have a vested interest in protecting intellectual property rights.
Yeah,
after
we just
a while,
got to do it right.
Musicians won't sing songs, and movie makers won't make movies if it's free on the internet. Congressman, appreciate your being with us as always, and we hope you'll be a regular guest with us because there's lots of stuff going on up there.
Thank you. Wish I was in Arkansas, but I'm not. Thank you, man.
Take care, Congressman Tim Griffin. There, 7:30.